All right. All right. Well, we are live on Facebook. I am super, super excited about today's episode of the Liberation Lounge. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are joining us live, put live in the comments. If you are joining us on replay, put replay in the comments. But I'm really, really excited about the conversation that we get an opportunity to have today here at the Liberation Lounge, where we have real talk with real women. And I have an amazing, amazing woman that we have the opportunity to hear from today. I have known her for quite a few years. I have so much respect for her as a woman and certainly with her profession. And I couldn't think of a better person than her to talk to us today about how women can experience greater liberation in their health and in their well-being. So without further ado, please help me welcome to the virtual studio none other than my dear friend and registered nurse, Shirley Richards. Shirley, how are you today?
I'm doing well, April. Thank you so much for this opportunity, for the invitation. Appreciate it so much. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Very good, very good. And you are live from St. Thomas right now,
In
right?
the VI, that's right.
Where we all wish we were right now in the
Come on
VI.
down.
Yeah, that's right. Come on down. Come on down. So I am so incredibly excited for this conversation today. And so as we just kind of get things kicked off here, I would love for you just to give our audience just a quick introduction on who you are, what your professional background is, and just so we can get a chance to know you a little bit better.
Okay, sure. Thank you. My name is Shirley Richards. I am a registered nurse for a long time. I am semi-retired, and I say semi-retired. I've been retired for more than 10 years from actively working in the government setting. Um, I should start by saying I am a Virgin Islander. I was born in Antigua, but I came here as a baby to St. Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
I am a mother of 2 by birth and 3 by love, a grandmother of 1, a very proud registered nurse. And my background in nursing, I started off in behavioral health, then called psychiatry, then went to medical and the surgical and intensive care nursing. And then after a few years, went to, because of family and my daughter, 1 at the time, to easier setting, which was school nursing, because it afforded me more time with her, my first daughter. Yes. So yes. I did school nursing until retiring from the Virgin Islands government in 2012. And then I went back to behavioral health in the private setting with adolescents.
Got it. So, awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, that's my nursing career.
You've had quite a plethora of different experiences, yes. Which I can imagine how valuable that is going to be in this conversation and to the people that are listening. And so I am super excited to really dig into women's health, right? And so, let's talk a little bit about just the ways, and we're living in interesting times. That is not an understatement, right? We are living in interesting times right now, but there are so many ways that women often feel disempowered when it comes to their health and their well-being. And so what have you found as the most common ways women feel disempowered in healthcare settings, and how can they really begin to reclaim their power when it comes to their own health?
Yeah, I think because of our history as women taking 2nd and 3rd place, that has impacted the way women seek healthcare. As nurturers, we tend to take care of everybody else first. Yeah. And even in the professional setting, nurses were seen to be less than doctors. But I know as a registered nurse that I even taught doctors different way to do things like wound care and stuff like that. And so nurses are now being respected. But women in general used to be, it's not as bad now, but used to be more dependent on men as the breadwinners and the ones that have insurance.
Mhm.
Now there are more programs that are out there and different settings like where we are now, where women are learning that they can be independent and to seek health care for themselves,
Yes.
and finding out that if you take care of your own health first, you can
Mhm.
better take care of others.
Yes. Yeah,
So the way
absolutely.
of empowering, like we've had here recently, a lot of women's conferences where women are being educated to therefore become more empowered.
Yeah. It's so key, right? And I think that is one of the huge areas that women need to really own is
Absolutely.
we are always in a position, and sometimes we put ourselves in this position, sometimes where we are serving everyone else, looking out for
Hmm.
everybody else's health and well-being.
Hmm.
But, a lot of things catch up to you. It's like the compound effect, right? If you neglect certain things, and
Absolutely.
I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty. I'll admit I would neglect certain areas of my mental health, my physical health, and I pay for that stuff. It gets expensive when you neglect, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
It gets expensive. And so it's so much better for all of us to be more proactive when it comes to how we're taking care of ourselves as women. So, and it's interesting, I heard you talk about how oftentimes nurses would be, training and showing doctors ways to help out, in especially in the OR. And I just happened this morning to be listening to an audiobook. Actually, it was late last night called The Checklist Manifesto. The
Okay.
Checklist Manifesto. And it's actually written by a OR surgeon. And he was talking about how all of the different challenges that we all experience in life, we experience these things because we simply don't have a checklist. And he was talking about all of the errors that happen inside of hospitals because people were not operating off of a simple checklist, right?
Wow.
And it was really, really powerful to hear him talk about this. And he's relating, obviously, the work that he does in the medical profession to how these high impact decisions that CEOs have to make, business owners have to make, and we could be preventing so many mistakes in society if we simply
Absolutely.
operated from a checklist, right?
Absolutely.
And he was talking about, he gave all of these examples of how people's lives sometimes were lost because they were not operating off of this checklist in the OR. And he specifically referenced how important nurses have become in those scenarios because the nurses oftentimes would catch things that the doctors sometimes
Yes.
wouldn't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And we're
so I just
the nurses are the ones responsible for doing the counts and stuff like that. Whatever God
yes.
put out, you have to count that amount to come back and stuff. Yeah.
Yes. 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 It was so all of you listening right now, I know you're always listening to your physician, but you got to pay attention to the nurses.
What the nurses are saying. Yes.
Yes. You've got to pay attention to the nurses. And I have a few nurses in my family. My niece is a new nurse, which is
Oh,
really exciting.
nice.
Yeah, so she's getting her feet wet. But
Bet.
I think it's really, really important, that we pay attention to that. And so let's talk about societal expectations around caregiving. Okay, we've had lots of conversations around caregiving. And
Absolutely.
how do societal expectations around caregiving and the it's a I always have said to people that caregiving for my mom was the hardest yet most rewarding thing I had ever done, right? And but there's a lot of obviously self-sacrifice that comes along with that.
Absolutely.
How do you think that the caregiving journey really impacts women's ability to prioritize their own health?
I should use what you just said. We need to live by a checklist to even
Hmm.
remind ourselves to take care of each other.
Yeah.
Guilty as charged. That's me. So as women in general, we are looked first to be the one to take care of your sick, your aging, your elderly parents.
Yeah.
Um, for me personally, it was extra difficult and still is because I'm the nurse in the family. So it's
Yes.
always Shirley will be the one that will, do this. And I absolutely love helping people. But in the process, I've been known to neglect myself. I am the
Hmm.
caregiver for my sister who is mentally challenged,
Hmm.
um, cognitively and psychiatric. But
Hmm.
yeah, so it becomes difficult, but I've learned now that I need a break.
Yeah.
And right now, actually, God bless my aunt and my cousins that they give me breaks where they can take her. But
Hmm.
we are looked on to be the caregivers, and we
Hmm.
take care of everybody else and not ourselves in
Hmm.
general. And so
Hmm.
we go back to what we it's like self-awareness. The things that I am doing for someone else is what I need to be doing for myself. And
Yeah.
absolutely, if there's an appointment to be made and I know that things medically has to be taken care of with someone else, I'd be on it. And then it'll be like, wait a minute, when was the last time you had your mammogram? Oh my God, more than a year had passed. I have
Yeah.
a history of
Hmm.
having cysts and I let time pass, taking care
Yeah.
of everybody else and not
Yeah.
myself. So
Yeah.
in general, that's what women do. We sacrifice our own selves, taking care of everybody else and not ourselves.
And I think something that you said was so incredibly important, which is the same level of care that we're providing to others is the
Mhm.
level of care that we need to provide to ourselves.
Absolutely.
And any woman who is
Absolutely.
listening to this right now knows exactly what I'm talking about because I lived it. I lived it.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
remember sitting in my caregiver class when I was taking care of my mom, and they said, I think the statistic was like over 70% of caregivers pass away before the care
Before,
recipient.
correct.
That was shocking to me. It was
Absolutely.
shocking. And I don't think people really grasp the magnitude of the physical stress, the
Mhm.
emotional stress, all the family dynamics that come along with caregiving as well. There is so much stress, and God made our bodies incredibly resilient. It has the ability to withstand a lot of trauma before
Mhm.
it really starts to take its toll. So I'm grateful that our bodies are created in that way, but at the
Mhm.
same time, we cannot take that for granted either.
Absolutely.
Right? We can't take that for granted. We really have to be mindful of the fact
Absolutely.
that even though we cannot necessarily outwardly see things that may be affecting our health, it doesn't mean that there isn't trauma that's
Happening
taking place
inside.
inside.
Yeah. Just
Yep.
locally, we had a sister and brother that died days apart. The sister
Wow.
was the caretaker for the brother. And I really
Wow.
don't remember if she died first, but maybe he died and she just died right after. Like she must have been just putting her all into taking care of this
Yep.
person. But
Yep.
absolutely, I have seen where caregivers are the ones to die first. Even
Yep.
working with couples in private duty nursing,
Hmm.
the one that was more sick lived longer because the other one
Yes.
was actually like the caretaker. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I heard so many of those stories in
Hmm.
my caregiving journey, and I think it's just so important that as women we understand that when you're in that if you we're all at some point going to be a care recipient and or a caregiver. It's just sort of the way
Absolutely.
life works, right?
Life. Hmm.
Yeah, and I remember in one of my caregiver classes, they were talking about that, and they said, "We have countless examples of what you just said, of the care recipient outliving the caregiver.
Yeah.
So be mindful of your health, be mindful of asking for help and not just assuming that no one's going to assist and just say, oh, okay, well, I got this. Women are so used to saying, I got this, right? But we need to take our cape off from
Yeah,
time to time, right?
exactly.
We need to
Exactly.
take our cape off and we need to put ourselves in a position where we are able to receive help, not just the help, not just the help that we're providing to the care
Right.
recipient. So, yeah, I
Well, I
absolutely love
mean,
that.
I have a story that hits really close to home, and it's almost 2 years now. But my
Mhm.
best friend, who was a registered nurse like me, um, her husband first had a bout with um, cardiac issues. He had to
Okay.
have surgery. He had a stent placed. He had all of that. And then years after, she's working full time as a registered nurse. Years after he developed cancer, then it was time to change the stent. But he was too weak, and all these things were happening with him. It was like either cancer had him in the hospital or his heart had him in the hospital.
Mm,
And so we were talking, and she was like, oh girl, when I am retired, I'm just gonna, do this and I'm gonna be getting this. And she worked for, I think, like 40 years at the
mhm.
hospital in New York. And she retired March 31st and was dead on April 9th. Taking care of her husband, taking care of everybody else. And she retired and got nothing. She was dead.
Nothing.
When her aunt called me, I was like, wait a minute, you mean Barbara's husband died? She's like, Shirley, my niece, Barbara died. I was driving, had to pull to the side of the road. She
Wow.
wasn't sick as we
She wasn't
knew.
sick. Yeah.
No, and 9 days after retiring. So it's a wake up call.
Yes.
It was a big wake up call for me. I was like, you know what? I got to start doing this. I'm gonna take care of me. I got to make sure this is done, because we take care of everybody else and neglect ourselves. So
Such
yeah,
a potent example of the
correct.
importance of us taking care of ourselves,
Yeah,
even when we are taking care of others, because there's so many things that are happening on the inside of our bodies
exactly.
that may not be manifesting outwardly yet, right? And those are that's a perfect example. Those are examples where, unfortunately, someone maybe wasn't taking as good of care of themselves as we all would have hoped they were,
Correct.
right? So we got to really take these lessons seriously, for
Yes.
sure. So let's talk about that a little bit, about that mind body connection, right? And
Mm-hmm.
how emotional or mental stress shows up in women's physical health. What have you seen over the course of your nursing career, how emotional stress, mental stress, and what are the things that can begin to happen in women's health when they are enduring that level of cortisol within their body?
Absolutely. So the first thing and the most obvious thing that we most often see is mental health challenges.
Mhm.
So you're so stressed, start to suffer from depression,
Yep.
anxiety,
Yep.
and those things happen. But we've also found that things like diabetes,
Mm,
cancer, heart
mm.
disease, all those
Yeah.
things are linked right back to stresses.
Yeah.
Even people being so stressed that they start to smoke, and then we know all the other things that happen
Yes.
on account, that potentially will happen on account of you smoking. But
Yep.
absolutely. And that is one of the ways where caregivers have died, because they are taken care of and they are stressed and
Mhm.
suffering with all these things that we don't even know about, and then
Yep.
just dead.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's so key. I think I talked about this on another show, but the book, The Body Keeps the Score, right? And
Mhm.
so that book talks about it doesn't matter how good you look
Correct.
on the outside. The body is always keeping the score, period,
Correct.
you know?
Mhm.
So you can have a
Big
smiling face
smile. Yeah.
on, but if you're dealing with stress in your job, in your career, in your
Your
marriage,
home.
with your
Correct.
children, in your home, all of that is going to begin to impact you long term. And I just had a great conversation with my physician. I have a new physician because my other GP ended up moving to another practice. So they gave me another physician. He was a man, she's a woman, just for sake of context. And she's a Latina woman as well. And we had a very transparent kind of sister girl conversation on my second visit because I had gotten sick twice, really close together. Okay.
Okay.
And like I got sick, and then she gave me some steroids, and then I kind of bounced out of it. And then it was like a week and a half, 10 days later, it's like it came right back. And so I went back to her, and I ended up having like full blown bronchitis that took me about a month to really get over. Okay. And I was like, I don't understand. Like, I eat really good, but she gave me this whole checklist of
Mm.
things. She's like,
Uh-huh.
okay, you're doing good on your eating. Well, what's your water intake look like, April? Are you getting your 10,000 steps in a day? How many hours of sleep are you getting? Like, she went through
Connected.
a whole list of things, right? And I did have a pretty big stressor, and I still have it. I'm still dealing with it right now in with my family, right? I got a big stressor right now in my family. And she said, that is the thing that's got to get resolved, because that is going to be, you could be doing everything else right, exercising, eating well, drinking your water, sleeping. You can be doing everything else right. But if that stress is not, if you don't get that under control, it's almost like it negates everything that you've been trying to do positively, right? And so it was, I
Absolutely.
really I really appreciated her just sitting me down and having like
Candid.
a real
Yeah.
sister girl conversation, like, look, sis, like, you got to get this,
Hmm.
whatever this family situation
Right.
is, it's got to get handled, you know, because it's
Right.
it's negating everything else that you're doing.
It's affecting, correct. In
Yes.
areas that we don't think you're being affected.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. And because I
And,
was like,
and,
man, I've
and,
never
and
been sick this long.
right. And we've also seen that that mindset is so very important with people who have been diagnosed with serious illnesses.
Hmm.
That mind, body, spirit aspect is so important because those people who have a more positive outlook will live, and those who are like, oh my
True.
God, get into depression and die in no time. So
Yeah.
that mind body is so, we're so connected with these
Yeah.
things. And it's, I am now being aware and more liberated, thank you to
Hmm.
these workshops and stuff that you have had to
Yeah.
include in me. And I'm still learning to put
Yes.
me ahead.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so incredibly important. And
Hmm.
I was listening to Atomic Habits by James Clear recently on audio, and he talked about the difference between people that are like lifelong success or people that just have these temporary spurts of success in life. He said it's because the people that are essentially understanding that it's all about the continuous and persistent refinement of their systems, not just goal achievement. It's about refinement of their system. And as they continue to refine their systems of success, whatever those look like, and whatever you're trying to be successful in, you might be trying to have a greater level of success in your relationship. You might be
Hmm.
trying to have a greater level of success in your health, greater level of success in your career, or in your
In
business,
every, yeah. Hmm.
right? It doesn't matter. He said the people that truly are successful are the ones that focus on the refinement of their systems of
Yeah.
success versus the achievement of it. And
Of
so I
correct.
only bring that up because I think oftentimes as women, especially, we get so caught up in, I gotta lose the 10 pounds before my kid's wedding,
Hmm.
or I gotta fit
Hmm.
into this dress or in this bathing suit by next summer. And we get so
Right.
goal achieved,
Goals.
achievement
Yep.
oriented about this particular
Achievement
date or
oriented.
this thing that we are trying to get done. And we don't actually refine our system. And as James Clear says in Atomic Habits,
Right.
he says, look, you can do that all day long, but it's going to be fleeting. You'll achieve the goal, And because your identity did not change, you will revert right back to the person that you were
Yep.
before. You lose the
You
10
have to
pounds
change your
within,
lifestyle.
yes, it's mindset, right? It's
Correct.
like, what kind of woman do I want to be? And he gives a great example. He says, one woman, when she was trying to lose weight, she would audibly say, like, say there was a chocolate chip cookie there or whatever. She would audibly say, okay, what would a healthy person eat right now? Would a healthy oriented person eat that chocolate chip cookie? Would they have that third glass of wine? Would they have that piece of cake?
Yes.
Would they drive versus walk or bike? Would they take the elevator or would they take the stairs? So she would audibly state,
Yes.
what
Yes.
would a healthy person do in this
Yeah.
situation? And by her verbalizing it,
Mm-hmm.
it caused her to make better choices,
Choices. Yeah. Yeah.
right? I thought that was such a good tip.
It is. It is. What I used to say is like the things like cake, it's my weakness. I was like, you
Mhm.
know what? I am not going to like anything more than it likes me. Because that cake doesn't
Mm,
like me. That cake won't blow me up, abdominal, hips, everything. So
yep.
I am liking these things more than they like me.
Oh,
So
that's
that was,
good.
yeah, that was my thing. Yep.
Yeah, that's really, really good because yeah, that cake is not going to love on you uh
Correct.
3 months from now, right? It's
Correct.
like it's not going to do that. So good.
Absolutely.
So
Mhm.
as we wrap up here,
Okay.
what would you say are some of the more powerful yet simple wellness practices that help women really kind of reconnect with their bodies and feel empowered about their well-being?
Okay, so you know how we've always heard God, family, the
Yeah,
church, or God, family, career.
yeah,
I'm like, God, me,
yeah.
family, career, whatever else. And
That's good.
so it's taking a lot to get women to now take care of themselves. If we
Yeah.
can get like what you are doing and what I
Mhm.
want to do more of is to teach women about putting themselves first
Yes.
and just do healthy things like here it can be going to the beach or going to a park or just taking a day where it says, you know what, today is my day.
Yes.
It's the hardest thing because we are caregivers,
Hmm.
but we need to work on finding ourselves,
Yes.
finding who we are. And
Yes.
that is a whole process. It's not a one thing. I
Yeah.
have lived personally as not just a nurse, but Sunday school teacher,
Hmm.
being on boards, doing presentations.
Hmm.
There's so many aspects of us that it's no one thing. But
Yeah.
finding ourselves in that aspect, like where I want to do now, I think my calling is to actually go back to work in
Hmm.
nursing.
Hmm.
And but yeah, just to learn to put themselves first. Take time for yourself. We need to take time for ourselves. Let me put it
Yes.
that way. We need
Hmm.
to make time to make our appointments and go to our appointments and get our
Hmm.
physicals done. And when we talk about women's health, we most talk about, taking care of our breasts, which is very important, and
Yep.
our reproductive system, which is very important. But general health, our hearts, checking for your blood pressure, making
Yeah.
sure that your mental health is intact,
Hmm.
all these things that have an aspect. So, my tip for women is to take time for yourself, learn
Yes.
to discover yourself, be happy in whatever situation you find yourself, and not
Hmm.
try to find happiness guilty in other people,
Yes.
other situations,
Yeah.
and live an attitude of gratitude
Yes.
because we have to learn to find things that we can be thankful for in every situation, not for the situation. And I'm learning to be happy with me because I am number one.
That's so good. So,
Thank
so good,
you.
Shirley. So good.
Thank
And
you.
I love the reframe that you just gave, and I hope that everybody caught it. And if they didn't, I'm going to repeat
Yeah.
it. But that
Mhm.
that hit me like a ton of bricks, what you just said. We have
Mm,
often been taught faith, family, finances.
correct.
That's what we've been taught, right?
Mhm.
But there is a missing component in that.
Correct. Correct.
And the missing component is you, right?
Always.
And I really I heard that. I heard that when you said it because that is so true. What we have often done is we have, yes, we put God first, and then we end up putting the family
Exactly.
next, right? And then or we put our career
Mhm.
in the number
Career,
two
faith, finances.
position,
Yeah. Mhm.
right? In the number two position. But that is often what we do is we do put the needs of the family, the needs of our career, our business ahead of
Right.
ourselves. And man, I am guilty
Absolutely.
as charged. Guilty as charged,
As we would
right?
say here in the Virgin Islands, see a sister here.
See a sister here. Yes. Oh my gosh. Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
And I think so many women find themselves in that place. But that's why I'm so excited about this conversation. And the reason why I wanted to start doing this show is because there is an awakening. There's a great awakening happening with
Yes.
women right
It's
now.
happening.
And it tends
It's
to
happening.
happen in what I call that midlife season, right? Which is somewhere between like 40 and 50. You have this wake up call where you're like, wait a minute, something's off here. Something's
Yes.
off, right?
Yeah.
And you start to really begin to ask yourself the hard questions and to prioritize you. That's what thankfully starts to happen. But gosh, if we can start teaching women at a younger age to start doing
Mhm.
that, think about how much less pain and suffering they would have to go through if we could begin to
Correct.
teach them as teenagers in their 20s and in their 30s to prioritize them, right? Versus the needs of all of these other
Correct.
people, right? And so the last thing I want to just touch on before we wrap up
Okay.
is, and I showed this on one of my workshops. There was a woman who, she's a health and wellness coach and a fitness coach, and she was talking about all the normal things that my doctor talked to me about, right? She talked to me about this. She talked about the sleep, the water, the eating healthy, and all of that stuff, right? Cutting out refined sugar and all of those things. But she said the one thing that we often are not including in the equation, and you touched on it, is the importance of living out our purpose and the impact that that can also have on our health
Absolutely.
and on our well-being. Oftentimes as women, we find ourselves in places in our lives where we are doing work that is not to our highest good. In fact,
Correct.
it can be one of the things that is actually detrimental tremendously
Detrimental.
to your
Absolutely.
health physically, emotionally, and
Emotion.
mentally. And so I really want to just make sure that as we are having conversations with our friends, with our aunties, with our sisters, our nieces, that we begin to really install this into the minds of more women that if you are not operating out of your God given purpose, whatever that is, okay? If you are not
Right.
operating within your God given purpose, it's time to do some real soul searching. And I'm not saying quit your
Yes.
job tomorrow, but what I am saying is do some real soul searching because there are
Yes.
ways that you can drastically improve your mental well being by simply doing
Absolutely.
work that is in alignment with the purpose that God has for you.
Correct. Correct. And I used to say before that there are different types of nurses, and I don't mean career wise. like in specialties. I mean, nurses who are there because they have a caring spirit, or nurses who are there for the money, or nurses who are there because it's what their mom used to do or whatever. I'm a nurse by heart. And I
Yes.
think that's the biggest thing that has me now is like, what are you doing? Like you're trying this thing, but it's really not you.
Yeah.
And the last experiences that I've had, I'm really being led to what was one of my first specialties, but I was told, oh, that is so morbid. Why would you want to do that? And that is hospice care. And that is dealing with people and families of
Yes.
the ones that are dying, because
Yeah.
it's not just taking care of the sick, it's making the families aware of not only the transition that is going to
Yeah.
happen, but saying things that need to be said, like
Yes.
treating that person as the person they were before they're laying in this
Yeah.
bed. You
Yeah.
know, so it's where I'm being called back to.
Yes.
So
Yes.
living
I
our
love it.
purpose is very important. And thank you so much for this opportunity to share. And anytime, I'd love to.
Awesome.
I'd love to. Yes.
Awesome. Well, we will definitely have you back because this was such a powerful, powerful and
Oh, I'm so
enlightening and
happy.
empowering
Thank
conversation.
you.
And so I just really, really appreciate you taking the time this afternoon to share your insights with
Thank
all of
you.
our listeners. And so, ladies
Thank
and
you.
gentlemen, that is a wrap. Okay. So please show some love to Shirley in the comments. Let her know what you thought about this content. And the Liberation Lounge is transitioning to YouTube, y'all, because Facebook has changed their live stream settings, and we want these episodes to be archived forever. So, effective next week, we will be releasing the Liberation Lounge episodes on my YouTube channel at April Joy Empowers on YouTube. That is the YouTube handle at April Joy Empowers. So, you'll be able to catch all of these episodes forever on YouTube
Okay.
starting next week. So thank you again, Shirley. So appreciate
Absolutely. Thank you. My
it.
pleasure.
Yes,
My
thank you for joining us today. And for those that want more information on some of the things that Shirley and I were discussing, just being empowered as a woman, some of the workshops and events that I hold. I do have an upcoming Pathway to Power workshop that I'm going to be hosting. If you'd like information on that, please put Pathway to Power in the comments
take
or send.
part. Take part.
It was
April
good
is
stuff. We had
amazing.
a good time.
Yes.
We had a good
Yes.
time. Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate you. Have a
Um,
wonderful day, and we'll talk to y'all next week. Bye for now.
Bye bye.